What are some of the best examples of you get what you pay for? When my husband and I had bought our first house, we bought a $99 lawnmower. It didn't last 2 months. We went back to the store and dropped $450 for a Honda. 16 years later, it's still going strong. Employees. I'm assuming this was meant for consumer products, but honestly, if a business has the option to acquire or retain better talent by paying more, it will positively affect the business. My workplace hires everyone who applies. Things are not well here. My boss hired at least 2 people I know of over the course of the last 2 years who did not have driver's licenses. My job involves pretty much only driving. So my dad has taught dang near everything I know about fishing. The one difference is that as I got older and started taking it a lot more serious, I started dropping serious dough on gear. My dad on the other hand swears by the Olay Walmart sale rack. I was home on summer break last month and we took a fishing trip together. He's asking me about a new rod I just bought in January. He's busting my balls because I spent $200 on it and that he could buy an entire arsenal of gear with that money. He's not wrong, but I told him you get what you pay for with fishing. Could not have scripted this if I wanted. He snaps his rod not even 10 minutes later on a fish that got wrapped up in a submerged tree stump. Busted his balls the entire rest of the trip. Is this fresh or salt water? I can understand shelling out for salt water because you never know what's gonna be on the hook. I've fished with cheap freshwater stuff forever and never had issues. Little Caesar's Pizza. I hate when people say it's trash. It's $5. It isn't supposed to be a great pizza. It is hot and it is ready. That's all. And you can feed 2 people for $5. I love it. I got one of those Assassin's jackets from Wish. The material was cheap and the hood barely made the top of my head, let alone in front of the eyes. Looked more like an edgy Teletubby than an assassin. When I was a freshman in high school, my friend got one of these to make him blend in like how you do in the games. We later figured out a poorly made replica Assassin's Creed jacket does not make you blend in with crowds. He wore it once. A mattress. My wife and I bought the cheapest mattress we could find at a mattress place about 5 years ago for like $400. We've just replaced it after 5 years, the past 2 of which were spent in discomfort at night. Now sleeping in a bed for about $2,500 bed and it's heavenly. Possibly. I hear a lot of mattresses are marked up as much as 300%. I wanted Sonic the Hedgehog, 2006. A few years ago because I had watched Game Grumps play it. I knew how bad it was, but I thought it would be fun to try and play through it. It isn't fun, nor is it playable. Sounds like an experience best enjoyed with someone to make jokes about how terrible the game is. Peripheral controllers for PC gaming. Used a $20 Satec joystick for years and finally had a chance to try a Virtual device. Totally different experience. Also computers in general. $300 Black Friday laptop is going to be a slow 4GB RAM Intel Atom laptop, while $1,000 will last you 5 years with occasional dust clearing and SSD. Cheap musical instruments. Several years ago a friend of mine came across one of those $5 trumpets you can buy from China on eBay. He bought it from one of his students so the student could buy a decent horn. We were playing around with it and discovered the following things. It played horribly. The tone sounded like a cheap piccolo trumpet and was impossible to play even remotely in tune. A regular trumpet mouthpiece would not fit into it. The receiver diameter was too small. The cheap mouthpiece that came with it would not twist tight. When you twisted it, it just continued to rotate. The valve action was horrible, and when we took the valves out to inspect them, we could not get them to thread back in. The kid was about to give up because he couldn't improve, but as soon as he bought a decent used horn, he immediately started getting better. Clothes. I've tried cheap ones and name brand ones. Based on my experience, the cheap jeans will about 6 months to a year. The name brand jeans I bought 6 years ago are still going strong. Buy name brand clothes at Goodwill. I bought this huge emergency lantern from Wish. I love Wish. I took a risk because it had good reviews but not much details about batteries or charging. It was a pretty cool thing though. It had one central lantern with 8 detachable smaller lanterns. Turns out you need this tool that exists pretty much only in Asia to open it to put in the batteries. I ended up ripping off a small lantern and breaking it, only to discover that it needed like 6 Korean batteries. I was freaking pee. I still am. Planet Fitness membership is $10. 24 hours fitness membership is $35. I asked before I signed up with 24 hours fitness, after previously going to Planet Fitness and hating the lack of hot water, if they had hot water because Planet Fitness always seems to have cold water showers or showers with water that just doesn't work right. The lady at the desk said of course. And I know because I've taken a shower in the locker rooms. I said thank God because Planet Fitness doesn't have any. She said you get what you pay for. As a former 24-hour fitness employee, still make sure to wear shower sandals. I have received athlete's foot a few times from 24. That being said, I love 24. Locations everywhere that I frequent. Insignia, Element, Seiki and similar generic electronic brands are dice rolls. Monitors and TVs are especially bad about burned pixels. I've heard Insignia uses the same LCD plasma panels that companies like Samsung and LG use, but just market as cheaper with less features. If this is true, they are perfect brand for someone who doesn't care about smart TV features or the speaker quality. Stock options. Generally if it's dirt cheap, it's probably going to go nowhere and expire worthless. That said, anything can happen and it's probably better more fun than gambling on lotto tickets. $25 Radio Shack soldering pencil. Takes 3 minutes to warm up. Build quality is merely okay. Grip gets hot to the touch, but not unbearably so. Conical point tip good for a wide variety of jobs but excels at none. $135 Weller WESD51 soldering station. Takes 40 seconds to warm up. Build quality is excellent. Grip stays cool the entire time. Chisel tip perfect for through-hole and some SMD electronics work. Adjustable temperature with knob and digital readout. And dozens of tips available for other jobs. Trust me when I say there is no better feeling than going from the RS to the Weller after unknowingly suffering through the RS for over 6 years. Or a Hacko. They're amazing. Bras. A cheap bra will fall apart and lose its shape very quickly, and offer little support or comfort. A good bra, properly fitted, will be like wearing nothing at all and last a lot longer without turning into a rag with poking underwear. What I can't understand is there are Huawei's in Delaware. My friend told me they were in Florida now. Why the heck did they skip North Carolina? Who knows? Maybe Huawei and Sheetz had a gentleman's agreement that NC would be Sheetz territory, because they are building those dang things everywhere here. Which would be bulls. I want a full-on Sheetz vs Huawei battle for convenience store supremacy of the Carolinas. Game controllers. That third-party controller costing less than half the price of a first-party is cheap for a reason. I had a Mad Catz Wired 360 controller break on me in just 2 months. My first-party controllers are still fine 10 years after purchase. Thankfully, one of my best friends later started working for Microsoft, so I got cheap first-party controllers through him. It really depends though. I've had to separate Rock Candy 360 controllers have issues where they'd randomly disconnect, but this Afterglow that I have now feels way better than a first-party controller. Nicer ergonomics, better D-pad, better feeling buttons. For quite a bit cheaper. There's a brand of Xbox One controllers at Walmart that are like half the price and look nearly identical. I'm sorta tempted to grab one. I work as a photographer. I sometimes see newlywed couples complaining online that their photographer messed up their pictures, or screwed them over in some other way. If they mention the amount that they paid, it is always in the $500 range. In my area a high-end wedding photographer starts around $3,000. You can find a decent wedding photographer for around $1,800 to $2,000. Anything less than $1,000 and you would be lucky if you have a few in focus. I cannot stress this enough, do not cheap out on your wedding pictures. When you are old and your memory begins to fade, they are your window into the past. Make sure they are something you want to look at. This might be a little off topic, but also make sure you have them professionally printed in a way that will last. I find that so few of my clients want to print their images anymore. When I was growing up, we used to save files on floppy disks. Today I wouldn't even know how to get any of those files to work on my current computer. Technology is always changing and can fail. A professionally printed album of images stored in a safe place will last forever. Not wedding pictures, but my boss made fun of me because I want a physical copy of all the pictures on my phone. They are saved to my iCloud and Google Drive, but I feel like if they are important enough to have, then I should have physical copies. Niece towed her trailer behind her SUV to help me move some big items when my house was sold. She hadn't cleaned the leftover dirt, now mud, from her last gardening supplies shopping trip. She and another relative loaded my mattress and box springs into the trailer and slid them forward through the mud. I would have been better off renting a U-Haul. Peanut butter. One day when you're broke you'll walk into a 99-cent store and ask, $1 for PB. Why would anyone pay 5 times more? You'll then take it home, spread your preferred ratios of PB&J on 2 slices of bread, and push 14 white squares through it all. Afterwards, totally unable to swallow because the smell and taste nauseate you, you'll spit the foul bite out. Unsure if the spread is real, you'll walk in and out of your kitchen 3 times glaring at what the last bit your check was spent on. You'd rather wait 3 days until payday to eat than put that crap spread back in your mouth. And that's exactly what you do. Smartphones. A year ago when my Note 4's charging port started to wear out, my wife, my son and I went to get Samsung J7s. The wife doesn't use her phone except to actually communicate, and my son uses his tablet for things like music and podcasts and navigation, but I use my phone for everything. And the little memory on the J7 could do very little before it got bogged down and I had to reboot, and in the meanwhile it was slow. As a professional truck driver, I couldn't wait minutes for maps to come up after it crashed for the 3rd time. So 6 months later I dropped $900 on a new Note 8. I'm much happier now, and as a bonus, I know that the money I spent on this phone is not a waste. As a phone store employee, I only sell J7s to people who don't use their smartphone for much. I have a J7, but that's also because I have the luxury of time, and I do almost everything on my laptop. Airlines. When people complain that their $65 Spirit flight wasn't as good as a Virgin first class, it boggles my mind. I have so many stories of people not using realtors and buying houses with major flaws or getting fricked with contracts or simply selling for way less than they should have. It's such a huge purchase, not the time to cheap out on good counsel. Tattoos. You can't give Steve down the street $20 and a 30-pack for a half sleeve in his basement and expect something you're going to be proud of for the rest of your life. Earphones and USB cables. Don't want to pay £20 for the official safe charger, but will risk fires for the cheap crap. Idiots. The contents of Harbor Freight. Having tooltips break off when you're tightening something reminds you that all metals are not created equally. Dentistry. That $499 crown. They use a lab in China. God knows what materials were used in making your crown. $699 implant. Do you really think they are placing a reputable implant? No, you're getting some crappy knockoff. Bought a pair of Levi's from Target. They split in the middle of my thigh after 2 weeks. I replaced them with a pair of Levi's from Macy's that cost about 20% more. Have had them for 3 years without problem. Union versus non-union. Not literal in every sense, just can't think of a better example. But union members are higher paid and better trained versus non-union that may earn less and not as well trained. I am currently working alongside a non-union crew and you can tell who's doing the better work. And not to mention union work being outsourced to Mexico or China. My neighbor used to make mufflers for Caterpillar and Bobcat. After they were outsourced, the company lost all contracts with Cat because the mufflers were not being built correctly and damaging the engines. And I would like to add, I am not knocking on all non-union shops or trades. I know plenty of talented workers that choose to be independent and I respect that. And not every union member is on par with cohorts. But generally, unions have a strong workforce. It depends. Japanese cars built by non-union workers in Ohio and the southern US top the quality and reliability scores. Big 3 cars built by Michigan unions still haven't caught up. They also rightfully earned a huge stigma for crap products prior to the 2008 crash, and that's going to take a long time to go away. They need to be much better than the Japanese, and at best they've barely caught up. In Canada, the teachers unions have so much power that the only way to be fired is to commit a crime. You can be atrocious at your job all the way to retirement. Shoes for 1. You don't have to spend over $200 on a pair of shoes, but you cannot compare the quality comfort of a $100 pair of Nikes compared to a $30 pair of Champions from Payless or Walmart. The difference between real Crocs and fake Crocs. One type allows me to walk without using my cane, the other causes blisters. Food, I am willing to pay more for pizza with fresh gourmet toppings instead of the diarrhea-inducing muck Domino's produces. Haircuts. My boss paid $10 for the sides of his head shaved. He realized his mistake when he asked for the sides to be cleaned up and she pulled out just the clippers. He then waited for it to grow out again, went elsewhere and got what he wanted and paid more. Trade work. Specifically, I work as an arborist, and the amount of terrible things done to trees by guys who charge half as much as a professional is so discouraging as someone who wants to start their own company. I assume this runs true for all trades though. Good work isn't cheap and cheap work isn't good. Can anyone cut and dye my hair? But for like $50. It's all I have, but my hair is really like, and I want a purple umber. Office furniture. People shop with champagne taste on a beer bottle budget, then buy a piece of crap chair from Costco once a year for the rest of their miserable lives. It might be a bit biased of me to say, but photos. I've had girls tell me they needed to cancel the boudoir set because it's too expensive, and my friend will do them for $50, and then without fail they always end up having a photo or two posted by their new to photography friend that look like absolute garbage. I get that photographers need to start somewhere, but if you're looking for photos for yourself and not just looking to help a friend gain experience, then you really need to be willing to pay for that quality. My dad's buddy once saw this super cheap pair of shoes. I'm talking €2 cheap. They literally fell apart after he walked like 10 minutes in them. In the end, it turned out that the shoes were not actually meant for walking. They were meant for dead people. Relatives of the deceased would buy them so that the person in question would not go into the grave barefoot, but we. Steak. I just went to Chili's and ordered steak. You don't go to Chili's and order steak. I work at a pasta joint that serves steaks on the menu. Anytime someone orders a steak, I try to talk them out of it. It's the same reason you don't go to a Texas Roadhouse and order the pasta dish. We have saute and pasta cooks, not grill masters back there. They almost always persist and order the steak, and when they get it, it is always either overcooked, undercooked, or they say it's terrible and send it back. For a pasta dish, literally 3-4 people do this. I can't help but feel smug the whole time when I take the steak back. Don't mind me, I'm just the guy that works here and is literally doing everything to keep you from ordering that steak, because what do I know, right? They just started a promotion where you get all you can eat steak and shrimp for $15 on Tuesdays. It's the only night I work. Frick me. Pretty much everything. The way I see it, there are 4 tiers of just about everything. 1. Absolutely useless crap that doesn't do the job it's supposedly designed to do. 2. The thing you put up with for a few months until you finally break down and buy the proper version. 3. The expensive, high quality thing you should have bought in the first place. 4. The way too expensive designer version that's basically the tier 3 item with the logo on it that somehow justifies a 600% markup. Yeah, the real skill is in finding the tier 3 thing for the price of tier 2 or even better one. Not always possible, but it can definitely happen. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.